raw conversation.
Navigating the natural and theology, influencing people to find purpose and live with quality. We descended to Christ, just acknowledge me. The sacred scriptures tell us, throw down your nets, come and follow me. A leadership that's anointed and appointed. When leading God's people, sometimes you become disappointed. You do what you can, you do what you know. You give it to God and let it go, go, go.
Welcome to The Real with Ross. Today we will have a conversation about the role of the senior pastor and the executive minister. Joining me today is the executive minister of our church, and she works very closely with me, Reverend Ronica Harris. She has served in the role for the last 4 years. She's gifted, skilled, and excellent in her work. Thank you for joining me today.
I am super excited to be here with you, to be here with my pastor, to be on The Real with Ross, and to follow all of the greats that you've already interviewed.
Yeah, we've had some really good conversation. And today will be another one.
Amen.
So
I appreciate that.
All right, so give us a little bit of your background, kind of get us going. How did you get here? She's been at New Hope all her life, like she was born in the back pew.
No, it's true. I'm pretty sure that I came in my mother's belly. And that's how I became a member of our church. I have been a member of New Hope Baptist Church, or at least grew up here and then became a member my entire life. Yeah. And then eventually, you know, I've served in many different areas, from praise and worship to doing our public relations for our church.
We should put those old pictures up.
No, we should not. No one needs to see that. And eventually, you know, really felt the call on my life and went to seminary, went to Denver Seminary, spent 7 years out in Colorado working and going to school at the same time. And then eventually came back home when our previous pastor was retiring. And then you came along maybe 2 years later.
Yep,
and
like
so it kind of feels like it was like a perfect kind of time where I was finishing up school and come back home, and then we had a new pastor.
Yeah. So prior to going to seminary, what were some of the things that you did here? I know you worked in public relations that had something to do with your background in production and film. But, you know, what was your trajectory like before you started ministry?
So I was doing kind of leadership over 2 ministries before heading off to seminary. So I was leading our praise and worship team, and I was doing PR. And so I think it was leading praise and worship. You know, for me, when I left here, my goal really was to go and get a leadership degree.
Okay.
Really a leadership degree in worship. I really wanted to sort of grow and develop in that area, and then come back and develop our team. And of course, once I got out there, the Lord had other plans for me. I changed my degree from a leadership in ministry over, I think, with a concentration in worship, to a Master's of Divinity degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then you were out there for 7 years. Uh-huh. So what did you do while you were there?
So being out there at Denver Seminary for 7 years, obviously going to school at the same time while holding down a job in production. I was working for High Noon Entertainment Television, freelancing there and working on a number of different shows. I think My First Place, I had a chance to work on Travel Channel, Extreme Water Parks, a bunch of different, and I still freelance on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And so I worked on that. And then also, while still working, I was also interning at a church out there, Restoration Christian Fellowship. And I was overseeing, I was pastor over young adults out there, as well as doing some consultant work with their media ministry.
Okay.
So I was training and mentoring their media ministry out there.
Okay. And what brought you back home?
So, really, I came back home I did believe that it was time for me to come back home, as I was asking God, what's next for me? What is it? Am I to stay here or am I to go back home? There was two things. I definitely felt a call to come back home, but then also my father was sick and my mother was here taking care of my father. So I think that was really the push that I needed to get me back home. But there definitely was, I really did feel like my time there was up, and then my father being sick just kind of like sealed the deal for me to come back home.
All right. So you came back and you were serving in what capacities?
So because, that was an interesting time. Our former pastor was leaving. So it definitely was a time where I kind of didn't have a whole lot to do, I think, because we didn't have a pastor at that time. So there was a period of transition of really just waiting for our new pastor to come on board. I was kind of doing some mentoring with our young adult ministry that was actually just starting, which was Glow at that time. So I was doing some of that. And I think I had started working with our worship team again a little bit. So that's some of what I was doing, but it definitely felt like, I was just kind of in transition and waiting for our next pastor to come along and really sort of seal or, develop a more concrete role for me here in this ministry.
Yeah. And I guess just this is great for conversation for people who are in ministry, in a church setting, trying to find their place. A new pastor's coming, the old pastor's leaving, new pastor's coming. You didn't already have a trajectory that was leading you to believe that you were coming in as the executive minister. I mean, I don't even think that when I arrived, I didn't even realize that was a trajectory that was going to happen. I just knew I needed some help. It was very evident quickly that I needed some help, and that I needed some help from somebody who's in ministry.
Amen.
What was it like on your side, though, when you started kind of going through the process towards being the executive minister? Because as I remember it, and all of my post-COVID days are, some of that stuff that happened beforehand to me is a blur. There was no identification for it in the beginning. You just kind of started filling in gaps with no promise of anything. It was just kind of like, hey, can you handle this? Hey, can you do that? Hey, can you take on this? And I think somewhere along the lines, it became evident or clear that was the direction that things were moving in. But how do you see it from your aspect or your angle?
Okay, so I agree with you. Actually, as I reflect on going back at that time, honestly, I had just finished seminary. I was just excited to have an opportunity to work in ministry. And I did feel like I was called to be back here at home. And so as I was getting the opportunity to do ministry, I was excited about the opportunity to do it. I did know, though, I wanted to combine ministry and my media background together. Mm-hmm. And I knew also that you also had a graphic artist background. Mm-hmm. And so I knew, I was like, I just felt in the depths of my heart and my spirit that God was going to do something great with both of our backgrounds. Mm-hmm. So I was super excited about that. And I was super excited. I was like, what is God going to do?
Yeah. Yeah, and then for the first year, it was discovery. I knew you wanted to be ordained. You had kind of started in that process. It was evident from the beginning that you had a desire to serve. And I think the thing I appreciated the most was and is that you had a desire to serve without a price tag. You weren't looking for compensation. You weren't banging down the door asking for money. There was no pressure about a position or anything in that direction. And so it made it a lot easier to trust that you wanted to serve because you had a heart for serving and not a heart for being paid. And after the first year, I felt like, like some of that stuff is still a daze to me. I look back at some of those things and I say, I can't believe I did some of those things as early on as I did. But I started then having conversation with the leadership about you coming in as executive minister. And, we started kind of looking at what that meant because the church never had a background for an executive minister position. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know what you were going to do. And they were okay with the stipend that we were giving you because it was so little that it was almost like if you complain about this, good Lord, it's like, don't pay her. Just don't give her anything. And everybody was fine with that. And then everything started to kind of shape itself because the church never had an executive minister. Fast forward from then till now, you've gone through the part-time stage, the full-time stage. And I say this even to our members on Sundays, so that they're not unaware. Administratively, you really run the church. I make a lot of the major decisions that are being run by me from leadership and things like that. But on the ground, day in and day out, knowing what's happening and being aware to what's going on, you really are the one that's more hands-on with those things than me. And I think that as a pastor, being able to say that takes nothing away from me. And also being able to share with the congregation that some of the things that may make me shine are really the efforts of you.
Amen.
And those on the staff that are doing a good job. And if they want to attribute anything about it to me, it's just that I guess somewhere along the lines, God has given me the ability to have good hires, elevate good people who know how to get the job done. So you've been serving in the role for 4 years now. And I thought when kind of shaping out the podcast for this episode, I think that there needs to be more conversation between the senior pastor's role and the executive minister or executive pastor's role and how they work effectively together. And I think we have a very good working relationship in it. We have our moments of challenge. We also have our moments of great success and reward.
We do.
And how we navigate those, I think, is what continues the relationship in a way where it's effective. What do you think are some of the common misconceptions that there are about an executive minister?
So I would say when we think about misconceptions, I think we kind of have to, and maybe you've done a little bit of that, kind of define, what the role is. And so my role as executive minister is to hear, to know, to understand your heartbeat for this church, to understand and to know the vision and the mission of this church that the Lord has given to you, and then to come alongside of you and then to execute the details. You got the big picture, you hear from God, you hear where we're supposed to be, what this church is supposed to be doing, what we're called to do. And then my job is then to execute those details. I think the misconception comes in is that probably because you are the face, you are the one who is out front, is that my job sometimes is maybe what may not be seen. Because I'm in the background. And so people sometimes are probably wondering, well, what does she do? And so because I am in the background, overseeing a lot that happens here in the church, from the ministries to what happens on Sunday, to what happens in the media room, to the check-in team, to even maybe, walking around on the grounds or seeing, that the toilet is out and it needs to be fixed, and I need to call and tell the trustees that this needs to be fixed. That is part of my job and what I do. And I think, people don't always see like that actually being handled. But when the toilet is fixed, when you come in and it is now working, of course, the trustees have handled that, but I've kind of had some hand in that.
Yeah. And I think that any busy pastor can say, even keeping up with the pastor is a full-time job. I mean, as we're navigating and being pulled in so many different directions, just keeping on us about the things that need to be done, decisions that need to be made, people are coming to you with requests. That's full-time job enough.
It is. I think I think part of my job is to maybe kind of help keep this train on the track, if you will, is to also, because you are busy, because you are, you're the preacher, you're the teacher, and currently the student. So my job is also to kind of look at the calendar and see where we are, and then remind you, hey, Pastor, this is what's coming up. How do you see this being played out in our church? And to just kind of keep you maybe focused a little bit on where we're supposed to be.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things I often tell friends who have asked me about me hiring an executive minister and how the roles operate, I say to them, you have to find someone, you have to staff yourself and find someone who balances out your weaknesses, not someone who has the same strengths. There are certain things that may overlap, and I find that, like, for New Hope, like you are a gifted preacher who can be left to preach anytime and we not have a problem.
Amen.
I don't want someone, though, who is only able to preach, because if that's the case, then they're great on Sundays if I need them to preach, but all the other business and day-to-day operations gets missed in administration if my presence is not around. And so I think that people have to learn how to staff where they need help. And for me, because I know that I need someone who can keep the train on track, I need that in a person, so I've looked for someone who can do that, And one of the things I like is, we've had very few conversations about you preaching a lot, I think you enjoy preaching. I don't think that that's first on your list, right? And for a person that wants to be in an executive minister, executive pastor, assistant pastor role because they want to preach a lot, if they have a very actively enjoying preaching pastor, that person is not sharing a lot of space and time for preaching, because part of that person's love is preaching. Mm-hmm. Like, you couldn't take preaching out of my job and I still want to do it.
Right.
Like, I love shepherding people. I love seeing people transformed. I love seeing the church grow. But I love preaching so much that if preaching was not a part of this role, I don't know if I would be as effective, because one of the things that gives me great joy and balance in this role is to preach on Sundays. And so I do think that you do an excellent job with making sure that the business of the church is handled effectively and things are on point. So what other misconceptions do you think people have?
I guess if I could think of other misconceptions when it comes to, I think that is one of the biggest parts, is that people sometimes may not exactly understand what my role is. And it is a supportive role. It is one, and it's interesting that sometimes people question it. But the truth of the matter is that my role is also biblical. There are biblical examples of, like, when we see Moses, there's a Joshua, there's an Aaron, and there's a Hur. Yeah. You know, when we see Pharaoh, there's a Joseph that is coming alongside and helping, hold up Moses' arms. When we see Aaron and we see Hur, when we see Pharaoh and we see Joseph is carrying out the administrative duties of the church. So sometimes I think people may question, may even say, why do we need an executive pastor? But the weight that you carry is heavy. And so you do need someone to come alongside and help you carry that weight.
Yeah, absolutely. So outside of that, what do you feel are your greatest strengths in the role?
So when I think about my strengths, I am an organizer. I am administrative. I do like, it's probably both. It's a great thing. And sometimes I think it's, maybe also, maybe not, I don't want to say a bad thing, but I am an organizer. And so I like to be ahead of things and like to be on top of things and like things to be in a certain way. But sometimes I realize that it may not go that way.
Yeah, especially if you're dealing with me, because I'm going to drag you down to the 11th hour.
Oh, my gosh. And so there's that part where it's like, okay, Ronica, Reverend Ronica, you need to be a little bit more maybe flexible here. So that's, it's a balance. It's a balance.
Yeah. And how do you advise executive ministers who may be frustrated, especially newer ones, who may be frustrated that their work style is not the work style of their senior pastor?
I think when I think about that, there are times when I just have to let it go. I really just have to let it go and realize that it's gonna be it will kind of all work itself out in the end. I mean, and the truth is, I think in every scenario when it feels like, because I think organizing also is about a little bit of, like, if we're being honest, having a confession session, a little bit about control. Sometimes you just gotta release the control and let it be what it's gonna be.
Yeah. Because I think the thing that staff pastors, executive ministers don't realize is, more often than not, the personality of the senior pastor that you have signed up to work with is going to stay the same. Certain things you may be able to tweak and help them get better with, but most of the time they see the role as you knew who you were working with when you got here. And how can you make those adjustments at times to accommodate the fact that they are staffing you according to your strengths and their weaknesses. And they don't expect their weaknesses sometimes to become stronger areas. They just know I'm weak, I'm deficient in this area, and I want to find somebody who is strong in it to help me along. I may not ever get any better in this area, but I want somebody who can balance me out and really pull me along to do better, but maybe not be the best.
And I do think, if I can have another confession,
Sure.
I do feel like you have gotten better.
Okay. I haven't been trying.
I think you have gotten better when it comes to organizing. Like we had the wonderful calendar that came out, which I feel like I kind of begged for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh,
but you know what?
But we have a calendar that is for the whole year, which I am excited about.
Yeah. But that was a lot of different things happening there, though. If we're honest, the first year you came on, I rolled out with the event form trying to get all of our ministries to figure out what they wanted to do, and they just could not turn in that direction. And I think this year we took a different approach.
Yeah,
and that approach was, we're going to plan the whole year.
Yes.
And we're going to task the ministries with doing what we planned and not asking them to plan what they wanted to do. And I think when it shifted in that direction, we had more control over setting out the pace of the year.
Yeah.
And then some of the things that had happened before that they had already done, we just kind of reinserted it again.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of what balanced some of those things out. But you're right, we have organized somewhat better in the last year or so. But I think that also comes from having the right people at the table in the right positions, handling the right areas at the right time. And I feel like over the last 4 years, or for the first 4 years, we were really just trying to adjust people to the right areas, because any pastor can have gifted people on your team, but if they're working in the wrong positions, they will not fulfill in their gift areas. And I think it's just about learning that sometimes we get frustrated when we have people on our team and we don't think that they're working well. It just could be that they need an adjustment. They need to work in a different role than they're working in so that you can get the right people at the table. Now, I will say a confession moment to you. And this is conversation I've had with some of our leaders. I think that some of the things that you asked for before that I wasn't doing or wasn't moving in that direction yet was really because I felt like it would put more work on you. And I didn't feel like it was fair to give you any more work as a part-time person. And so even though you were asking for the work or asking for particular things, I was like, no, everything that she's doing now, leave it like this. And if all of these areas fall by the wayside, then let them fall by the wayside rather than treating her like a full-time position when she's really a part-time position. And I think that the balance for the senior pastor with the executive minister has to be, if they're not full-time, understanding how to limit the pace of what is being assigned to them and expected of them so that people don't continue to work you full-time and pay you part-time. Because there's this habit in ministry of getting everything we can get out of a person and leaving them where they are. And I think that, and we didn't even script this, so we can just kind of talk about it. I think one of the things I felt good about, and you can, in all your honesty, you can tell me if this is not the truth. I think one of the things I've tried to do my best with you is fair compensation to the best of our ability. and advocating for that for you, even if it meant that what I was entitled to on a raise I didn't get, so you could be more comfortable. And I think that those kind of things are important because it teaches people that when you have people at the table with you who are helping and assisting and making the vision happen, you have to watch out for them, even if other people don't always see the benefit or value of it, because at the end of the day, the assistance you need is just as important or more important than the compensation being given to the pastor. So for me, it was like, yeah, you could give me this raise here and this raise there and this amount here and this line item in there. However, if I take less and I shift those numbers to the executive minister's compensation, it really helps me more because I have somebody at the table who can shoulder the work rather than me being the only person at the table working.
So when I think about the role and I think about the duties that, I have and that I took on, I guess, over the course of the 4 or 5 years that we've been together, there definitely was, me, of course, knowing what I could do and seeing that I could take on more. I do appreciate the conversation about, I guess, also kind of having boundaries around what I would do, based on sort of like, well, she's part-time right now, so let's not put too much on her because we do need to set, I guess, even sort of a precedent, which I am understanding more and more as I kind of walk in this role. I think probably before, maybe was just kind of excited about being in the position and really just wanting to serve. But there is a part where you do need to be smart or strategic about, working within the church and considering, what I can or should be doing for also what I'm being compensated for. And so I do, and I also appreciate the fact that, you did advocate for me and advocated for my position here, and then also advocated for the salary that I would have for what I was doing in the role that I have.
Yeah. So what do you think how do you think the executive minister's role is critical or crucial to the effectiveness of the senior pastor?
So when I think about my role and how critical it is for you, you, again, are the visionary. You're the visionary leader. You're the one who is setting the course for us. But because there are things like you cannot possibly do everything that this church needs to be done. And so there are things that I'm going to see, there's going to be holes maybe that I feel that you cannot, especially now, especially as I sit in this seat now, as the person right next to you. There's no way. And you also while you are filled by the Holy Spirit, the Lord is leading you, you're still a human being.
Absolutely.
So you certainly need someone to come alongside of you and help you carry out the work of ministry in this church.
Now, I'll flip the question the other way. What does the executive minister need from the senior pastor in order to be effective in their role?
Because I am the organizer, because I am the administrator, I think we need to hear from you more often, I think, to hear more maybe about what is on your heart. What are you thinking? Where are we going? Because I know you. And I know that the Lord is speaking. He's always speaking. I know he's always telling you kind of where we are going. And so I think, I really want to hear like what's coming next so that I can plan, because that's that really is like.
Yeah. Now, and then in a general way, for a senior pastor who's watching this, what can they do to help their executive minister be more effective in their role?
I think when I think about the executive minister, I think times of conversation, communication, of course about the church, but then also I feel like when I think about it, also maybe just times of maybe mentoring and spending time with the senior pastor, just maybe just hanging out.
Okay.
I mean, just, I guess more times just to hear the way you think, so that we can also, because I think you kind of understand maybe more about your pastor and the way he thinks, and then you can kind of catch that, and it becomes organic when you're just kind of hanging out together.
Yeah. Where do you think that most senior pastors, generally senior pastors, fail in their relationships or support roles with the executive minister?
I think it still comes back to sometimes, I think when you think about failure, when it comes to the relationship or the working relationship between the senior pastor and the executive minister, it probably is in the communication piece, of sometimes, sometimes it kind of is what it is. Sometimes we find out things in working. Sometimes we find out stuff in the going, in the doing, and we find out things like when everybody else finds out things. And of course, that executive minister who has that administrative gift would want to know maybe before everybody else knows.
Yeah. I think the hardship for Baptist churches, when I came into New Hope, there was a hierarchy, there was a flow of leadership that had already been established for many years. And when I look at how it went, it was the pastor, it was the deacons, the trustees, and then somewhere down in that group was like associate ministers. And it really wasn't even like associate ministers, it was just like the ministers. And sometimes I think the hardship can be, you really want the executive minister, executive pastor, assistant minister, assistant pastor, whatever the title is going to be, associate pastor. There's so many different ways that people word it now, to be right under you, because then you get a chance to filter these thoughts for ministry and all of that through somebody who's in preaching ministry and kind of doing ministry in that same vein as the pastor. But oftentimes decisions can be made by deacons for their ministry, trustees for their ministry, or among deacons and trustees for the overall church. And by the time it comes down or comes out, it's like it has happened in a meeting you really aren't privy to.
Correct.
And kind of getting the culture to a place where people see the value and necessity of the executive minister without feeling threatened, pushed to the side or even pushed down, and really seeing those roles as all of the positions work together for the better of the church.
Yeah.
So I think that's sometimes what may make those situations happen, that the pastor is balancing working with this new executive minister, pastor, while also operating with the deacons, trustees, and trying to make all of this happen in tandem with each other while keeping the peace. You know, I think that's like one of my biggest roles, I think, has been just being a peacemaker, you know, just and keeping and maintaining peace among people who can just, they can get off the peace wagon quickly. So, you know, that can be the challenge for the executive minister and senior pastor. So what is a typical day, week like in your role?
So a typical day for me, you know, I come in and of course, you know, like most people, I'm coming in, I'm checking emails, I'm looking to see what's ahead for the week, what's ahead for the Sunday. And then also, I am also forecasting, if you will, looking at, you know, what's coming up next month, what's coming up for the next couple of months, so that we can start considering what the needs are. What committee do we need to get together to plan out what July looks like, what October looks like, what December looks like? We have to start thinking about those things now. Even though it's summer, those things will be on us before we even know it. I can't even believe that, honestly, we are already halfway through May.
Yeah.
So, you know, that is what, you know, part of my job, you know, looks like on a daily basis. So I'm overseeing our staff here that is actually here in our office on a daily basis. And then, you know, planning Sunday's worship, making sure that we have everybody in place for Sunday, from the media team to the check-in team to the ushers, and then running, you know, kind of putting out any fires that may happen during the week. If there's any, you know, deaths or sickness in our congregation, is kind of making sure that people are in contact with their deacon or whoever kind of needs maybe some pastoral care for what they're experiencing.
Yeah. I don't think that people realize how much work it takes to make Sunday happen. I mean, even just Sunday is enough to make your whole week full. You know, from media to check-in team to music ministry and the different, you know, players in that, with rehearsals and making sure that, you know, if there are traveling, we have a lot of traveling musicians, you know, who are very successful. If they're out, whoever's filling in for them, make sure that when they're here, they know exactly what's, you know, happening and how we run worship and all of that. Well, describe. I think this is one of the things that we may do that some may not do. Describe what the Sunday experience is like from the time you get here.
Sure.
Till the time you leave.
So I get in typically on Sundays at 8:30 a.m. And that is to really just to open up and start preparing for Sunday morning worship. And so what that looks like is making sure that everybody is in place. The worship team starts coming in around 9 o'clock. We actually have a Sunday morning meeting. We go over the entire service. We're checking spelling. We're checking to make sure that we have all graphics, all of the ministry events that we have. We're checking to make sure that that's in place. We're checking to make sure that we have New Hope TV in place. We are, making sure that just like all these different moving pieces, people are right where they need to be. We're doing mic checks in the morning. If someone is, a group is making an announcement or something, that group needs to come in early so that we can make sure that we have enough mics for everybody in everybody's place. We even go over the movements of pastor. Like, where is pastor going to be throughout the service? Is pastor going to be in the pulpit, or is he going to be on the floor when he's speaking? Because that also tells our media team what camera positions we need to have, because we also are streaming. Mm-hmm. And so because we're streaming, we have to be concerned that the people who are watching us on the stream will be able to see and hear what's being done and what's being said on Sunday morning. And so even that, we even have people that are specifically assigned to our social media channels to make sure that everybody is okay even in there, because our social media, our digital disciples are saying hello to everyone. But not only are they saying hello, if someone says, I need prayer for this, they're reporting that back to me. Mm-hmm. To let me know. And then, of course, I give a report back to pastor to say so-and-so said they needed prayer, and pastor will then reach out to that person, or at least, find out who that person is and then get them to the deacon or the person who can then pray for them or, offer some pastoral care for them. So there's a lot.
And that's only, so our service starts at 10:45. You're talking about 8:30 to 10:30. So that's only 2 hours of your day.
Correct.
That's the first 2 hours of your day. So now tell us what the 10:30 to, let's say, 12:30 when we get out of church, what does that time frame look like? Because, I haven't entered the building probably till 10:35, 10:40. If we have West Orange that Sunday, sometimes 10:50. So what does the 10:30 to 12:30 time look like?
So 10:30 is then making sure, okay, does pastor have his mic? Does pastor have his ears? Are we all in place and in position? Because we are getting ready to go live on our stream. Do we have the words for the hymn on the screen? Is that all ready and set? And then does pastor have everything that he needs in order for him to now feel comfortable and confident to go out there and be ready to minister to the congregation? And then once we're in the sanctuary, once service has started, the train has pretty much left the track. We're kind of going, but then there's things that even come up during service. Maybe we did even this past Sunday have an issue with our stream. And so, my job was then to let everybody know on the stream that, listen, we are having some technical difficulties. We're going to be up as shortly, as soon as we can, so that you don't leave and that we have not left you, and that someone is concerned, and that we are working to get this up so that those who are on our stream know that service is happening. We're coming. We're going to be up in a few minutes, so that they know that they haven't been left out of what's happening in the sanctuary. Yeah.
And I think that 10:30 to 12:30 time frame, when you're working with the senior pastor, and I don't say this to excuse behavior, I do think that every person has to be in a mindset of how they're managing people. But I think that if you're working with a senior pastor and you're working in an executive minister role, you can't be soft-skinned. There are a lot of times on Sunday when I have to give you a message and I need to give it to you quick, and I can't give you all of the sugar coats that go along with it. Why the light's not on over there? You know what I'm saying? And it's not even to be rude. It's just I can't say, hey, Ronica, you know, I just want to tell you, no offense to you or anybody else that did anything this morning, but the lights over there aren't on. You know, it's like, it's a quick turnaround. They're like, hey, I need a mic. Hey, and so I think that part of the relationship is managing the fact that sometimes the message comes across very quick. Mm-hmm. It's a short message, and it just needs to have whatever it is done, and it's nothing personal with it. It's the pastor doesn't hate you, you know, they don't have this vendetta against you. It's just, hey, we got something going on. Let's try to, you know, get this accomplished. Let's get this fixed or whatever it is. But that 10:30 to 12:30 time frame, I mean, all of the time frames that you work on Sunday are critical. But I think in that time frame, everything's happening right then and there, and so it's not a lot of space to make the changes that could be made before service, right, while services right, is happening. And even, you know, you updating me about certain things that are happening on Sundays, being around the phone, the text, and, you know, and or receive text or check in on certain things is so critical. And I think it's also, for me, one of the biggest pieces I think that a senior pastor can do to help the executive minister, I think it's twofold. One is to trust them. Trust them to do their job. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing I think is to support them in doing their job. I tell people all the time, and I've told you this, when you've gone out of town for vacation or whatever on a Sunday, you're like, oh, they need the team needs their 8:30 meeting. And at one time you asked me, was I going to be there early? And I was like, for what? I don't even know what to do in the 8:30 meeting. Why am I going to it? They would be telling me, all right, Pastor, so now you're supposed to tell us da-da-da-da-da. Okay, well, where do I find that information? Oh, it's right here on the script. They would be 8:30 meetinging me. Yeah. Not the opposite way around. And I think I'm okay with not knowing how to do your job. I'm fine with that. I don't need to know how to do your job. I just need to trust that you know how to do your job and empower you with all the tools that you need to accomplish it while not trying to micromanage you doing your job, which means like you're not getting a text from me at 8:45. Hey, are you at church and are you in your meeting? Like, by the time when I get there at 10:30, everything is falling apart. That's when I'm having a conversation because I don't know what's happening between 8:30 and 10:30. But I'm okay with that because I think that when you work with a person and you trust them and you support them, they may not always make the decision the way that you would. And if it affects you that badly, you have the conversation later about, hey, we might need to adjust this or adjust that. But how you get it accomplished is on you to figure it out as long as we're getting it accomplished the right way.
Amen.
So what's the 12:30 to 1:30 or 2:30 time frame looks like? Because that's just as important. I mean, that's the big exodus. Everybody's leaving with.
Well, can I just circle back to what you just said? So I appreciate what you said in terms of what you talked about having to tell me things, and you know, you just have to tell me very quickly. And I think that goes. So I bring the minister to the table, but then I also bring my production background. So having worked in news, in a newsroom, I often was told things quickly and had to run. Yeah. And so that's part of the reason why you see me run. I'm used to running, being given quick instructions, and sometimes not having all the details, but having to figure it out as I am going. Mm-hmm. So that is fine with me. Actually, I kind of thrive off of the Sunday morning race. Mm-hmm. It's a space that I feel really comfortable. I feel comfortable in. But to answer your question about the 12:30 to 2:30. Mm-hmm. So we've finished service, but there are things that still need to be taken care of. The musicians, need to be paid. There may be checks that still need to be written. after church for whatever, church is still, even on Sunday, we're still doing sort of administrative, duties, even on Sunday. And then, if there are special needs for our congregation, it's tending to those needs. So we may not get out of here on Sundays till maybe 2:30 or so on Sunday, because people still have questions and have needs. And so we're here to meet those needs.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that people have to know if they're working with a senior pastor and they're on staff with them, very few times do you leave before I leave. If you have something going on, by all means, I'm not going to say, don't take your mother out to dinner for her birthday because we have not left the church yet. Of course, that's just like, okay, you have problems.
Right.
We need to go in a different direction because you are narcissistic and you have very controlling behaviors. But if a person wants to work with the pastor, but they want to be more busy on Sunday than the pastor is with their other things that they want to do, you want to run out as soon as church is over and all of that, I don't know how that relationship works well, because there are a lot of things after church that I need handled just as much as I would have during church or before church, because Sunday is the marathon day. It's the day when everybody's here. And some people say, well, we can do that on Tuesday. Everybody's not here on Tuesday, but everybody is here, from leadership to membership to office staff. Everybody's here on Sundays, and everybody has to be willing to chip in and get the job done, because a lot of times the stuff that we can handle on Sunday means it doesn't end up lingering till Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we've gotten people situated and given them their stuff to do, and they're off to whatever their next greatest adventure is.
Sundays after church, for me as an executive minister, is actually probably a really golden time, because I'm usually able to sit and get answers from you.
That's true. Yeah. I'm going to be here on Sunday.
At that time. So, I can usually, if I have my list together, I can usually get all of the things that may be bubbling up or coming up, questions that I may have about whatever. I can usually get those things answered.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. All right, so here's the wrap-up question. How have you grown personally, ministerially, and positionally as you served over this time?
So when I think about these last 4 or 5 years that we've served together, when I think about the growth, and it's funny because I was thinking about this the other day. I believe that I have grown in my prayer life.
Because I require a lot of prayer.
No,
okay.
No, listen, honestly, I do. I feel like I have grown in church, I think, requires it. Doing ministry requires that we grow in prayer. I think that we grow deeper in our study. I will say that I definitely have grown in that area. It's for sure have grown in that area. I think, when I think about who I am as a minister, I think that I've also grown one of my prayers has been, Lord, help me to see people as you see them.
That's a good one.
It is.
I might start praying that soon.
Because what that means is that I need to show people more grace. And so that is an area I feel like I am growing in. And I continue to ask the Lord, please show me people as you see them. And, I know that God sees us all as his beloved, with all of our flaws. And so that has been a big prayer for me. And then, positionally, clearly, like I've gone from being an associate here to being your pastoral assistant to being now the executive minister of our church. I think when I look at my trajectory, or even, in comparison to even others, I've probably made the leap probably faster than many. And it's been, the truth is, I mean, I really have an awesome position, opportunity, favor. It's been the truth when I look at, Lord, sort of, when I look back over my life, when you think about it, like I really have done, I think, a lot and had accomplished a lot being in this position. I'm grateful for the opportunity that you have given to me here at this church. When you think about all the things that we have had an opportunity to do, from Easter being out, at the high school, for Easter being, having our church outside of the walls of this church was amazing. We had an opportunity to also do the documentary on our church's history. That's been really, really cool. I don't know if I would have had that opportunity at any other church.
Yeah, you took that on as a whole project by yourself.
Yeah, I would not have had that. I don't think I would have had an
Now I definitely got to put the pictures up of that when you were in the director's seat.
Oh, yeah, I don't know that I would have had that opportunity at any other church. So
even the Christmas production at Hackpack, putting on the Christmas production.
Yeah. So we've had an awesome kind of just, pastor and executive minister working together. We've had an opportunity to, I think, do a lot.
Yeah.
And it's been, that stuff has been like fun.
Yeah, it has been. I mean, even with Alive that year, well, both of the years, we had the concert stage, we had we almost had it felt like we were having a state fair or something outside. It just became such a big old day. And I mean, I know they spend way more money than we spend, but for a church, the kind of things that we've done is a testament to the grace and greatness of God.
Yeah.
But a lot of that stuff has taken a lot of work.
It did. But it was an honor and a privilege. That was, again, while I was in seminary, one of my prayers was that I would be able to merge my minister background along with my media background.
Yeah.
And God has answered that prayer in this position.
I mean, even in the media side I look at some of the things now, and I'm thinking about some of the times where we've looked even more professional than we do on Sundays. Because I think our Sunday media team, I mean, is exceptional. They are professional. We have one of the best media teams. I'll put our team up against any other team.
They rock.
Yeah, in this country. And I think that they can hold their own. And even on the professional side, like watching some of our teens work professional cameras, like the Sunday we took everybody down to West Orange and we took over the high school. And I'm thinking about people like Sydney and Victoria and them who have the big old earphones on with the mics and they're working behind the cameras and, like they would be set up at a press conference or something, or at a big event at the PAC or something like that, But all of that stuff is a testament to really your leadership. And I'll say this, and I think this goes back to what you said when you started. The pastor does, in most instances, or at least should, have vision. And a lot of times it's big vision. Like, I realize I have big vision a lot of times. And sometimes the detriment to you all is I have big vision with short windows to get it all done. Right? Like, it's not like 2 years from now, I think we should do da-da-da.
Right.
It's like, all right, well, in 2 months, I think we should do this. And it's like, whoa, we got to pull all of that off. And I don't work out the vision details. Like, I don't come to you and say, here's the big vision, and here's all of the pieces that we need to do in order to get it. It's kind of like, here's big vision. All right, now y'all run with it. This the date, this the time, this the place. Y'all need me to call anybody to streamline any of these things to get it done? Like, I can call this person. I can call that person from this position or that position to kind of get us through the hurdles. But, okay, did y'all find somebody for this? Did you find somebody for that?
And I always love your big vision. I always love your big vision. It's always the time part that, is always concerning. Because I'm ready, the truth is I'm always ready to go. I'm always ready to do it.
Y'all always make it happen.
I always like to, and I like to be challenged. I just don't I like to plan it out.
Well,
we know that.
Y'all, if y'all want the stuff to give you more time, start failing at some of the stuff. Because then I'm going to say, oh, dang, I should have gave him more time.
Okay. Noted.
But failure doesn't look good on y'all.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
All right, so what other ways? Any other ways you think you've grown as, you're going back, you're doing your doctorate now?
I am.
You've been ordained in this time frame. I mean, you've had some pretty monumental moments in your ministry over these.
Yeah, so that is new. The fact that I am going back to school. I am getting a doctorate in spiritual formation and soul care. This is my first semester. I am super excited about it. I will be leaving in about a month to go spend 2 weeks at Biola University to do an intensive for 2 weeks to study there. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. And I also say this to a pastor, and even speaking about how pastors have to be willing to support. So I can't remember which one of us said we were going to school first. I don't know whether I ended up pulling out the gate with it first or whether we kind of started talking about it around the same time. But I know that when you told me that you were going, in my mind I said, oh, well, both of us are going to be in school at the same time. That's going to be rough. Mm-hmm. Because I know what it takes. Mm. But I would have never discouraged you from going in order for it to be more beneficial for me to go. And I think that one of the things that, as a pastor, I've had to learn is that there's nothing wrong with empowering a person, even if it means that it won't be to the greatest benefit in time, at that time to you. Like, I know that you've been in school pulls, your attention away, and me being in school at the times pulling my attention away, and then sometimes it's pulling our attention away at the same time. But I don't feel like you need to hold back on the things you want to do because of the things I'm doing.
Amen.
And I think that there has to be a balance, because one of the things I do know is this, that you deserve to accomplish your goals in and out of ministry, inside and outside of ministry, just like I do. And so it's about finding ways to support and empower you in that, so that as you are working, you have someone who's in your corner to say, hey, you want to go to school? You should go to school. Hey, you need help with this? All right, well, let's get you help with that, and not seeing it as competition. Mm-hmm. Like, one of the things I appreciate about our relationship is that there's no competition. I don't feel any sense of jealousy or envy. I don't feel the need to hold you back from any potential opportunities. If people ask me for you to serve in any capacity, I'm like, you want me to ask her for you? I ask her, and even with the more recent thing that people will find out soon about the American Baptist Church's North New Jersey position that you're taking, and I don't even know if you know this, but coming out as the coming out as the moderator and being immediate past moderator, two people can't serve on the executive committee from the same church at once. So when they asked about you, and I was already serving and really was supposed to move into the immediate past, there would become a problem for one of us serving if the other person is serving. And so I said, I'll come off. Let her come on.
Oh, wow.
Because to me, you having the opportunity to serve was really way more important than me staying on. And so I think those are the kind of things where it gives space for you to be empowered, for you to get new opportunities, because I don't think that you're lacking in opportunities. I also don't think that I've lacked in opportunities or experiences. There are so many pastors that I can name that have been a blessing to me throughout the years of my ministry, who gave up stuff in order for me to have stuff, or sacrificed or put my name up for things. And I've always determined that with those who serve with me, I want, to be that same way. So I hope that, in all that you are doing and you have done over this time, that you've been able to have more opportunity than you ever expected. And I hope that you'll always have more opportunities than you can ever imagine as you serve, so that the gifts that you bring to the table can continue to mature and produce all that you desire.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I appreciate what you just said. And I appreciate the support that you have given and are continuing to give to me. And I know that when I came to you, and I think we were kind of like probably honestly around the same time, starting to fill out applications for doctoral programs. And you immediately said, just send me the paperwork and I'll write your recommendation.
Yeah.
So I am grateful. And even giving me the opportunity to leave, to go away for 2 weeks, that's a big deal. So I am appreciative that my pastor would let me go for let me go for 2 weeks. So I am appreciative of it.
I will say, I've said to people, like, when they say, oh, if I'm looking for somebody, what should their office hours be? And I'm like, I don't know. Ronica doesn't have office hours. You've chosen what days you work and what times you work or whatever, because I feel like if the person is effective, then I don't need to be lording over your time. If you're getting your work done, it takes you 3 hours to get it done, or if it takes you 8 hours to get it done. As long as it's done, I don't want to control how long it takes you to get it done. I also don't want you to be sitting at a desk idle all day doing nothing just for the sake of clocking in and clocking out. Because you may have to fill in times where the clock may not be on.
Right.
So I definitely appreciate the grace that you have for the position you serve in, and know that the 2 weeks that you'll be away, you have more work than you think with that work stuff. So what do you anticipate doing with your degree, your new degree? Where do you kind of see it balancing out, and then we'll send everybody home?
Well, I'm still formulating what I'm going to do with my degree, but the consideration is being a spiritual formation director. And that is really, all about helping people sort of figure out what God is saying to them about who they are in God and what their purpose is. And so we'll see how this all shapes out. Because I think what I know about God is that you start off with one idea and then God has another one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So I leave room for the Holy Spirit to shape and form what this is going to look like at the end of these 3 years or so.
Oh, yeah. You got a lot of time to figure it out. So, thank you for joining us today. Hopefully something that we gave in conversation will help you as you balance as a senior pastor, as an executive minister or executive pastor, or someone who desires to work on staff alongside a senior pastor. May these pearls of wisdom help you as you move along.
Real with Ross and ministry leaders, candid conversation for spiritual teachers. The Real with Ross and ministry leaders, candid conversation with spiritual teachers. The Real with Ross and ministry leaders, candid conversation for spiritual teachers. The Real with Ross and ministry leaders, candid conversation for spiritual teachers.
The Real with Ross now. Do-do-do-do-do-do. The Real with Ross now. Do-do-do-do-do-do. The Real with Ross now. Do-do-do-do-do-do. The Real with Ross now.
Real and raw conversation.